living in El Paso, Texas. We hope that everybody out there is doing great. We are pretty excited. We're rolling into Thanksgiving, which is going to be nice. The weather is cooled off, obviously, but it's certainly not cold. We're obviously outside here. I think today it's probably, yesterday it was, I think like mid-70s or something.
That was nice.
So yeah, the weather's been fantastic. So we are going to talk a little bit today about the issue that we brought up last week, which is about the lawsuit in the real estate commissions. But before we do that, let's just maybe just have some nice social banter for a little bit. Alex, I know you've got a lot of stuff going on this week, got a lot of family coming in. How's all that looking?
Good, busy, very busy, but really good. I have like 15 or so people coming to my house. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Actually, I gotta go pick up a turkey because we don't want to cook. And apparently in Mesa, there's a place that they sell the smoked turkeys.
Okay.
You gotta sell them ahead. You gotta order them ahead of time. So we gotta go pick that up. So it's gonna be busy week, but I'm very excited. You know, always family coming over, and you know, the times that you have to make sure you cherish. You know,
For sure.
especially when I have almost everybody coming to my house. It's not often when that happens. So.
Yeah.
How about you?
Oh, that's awesome. Not too much going on here. My parents live in Florida, but they bought a house here in El Paso, not too far away from us. They are up here, so you know we're gonna do Thanksgiving over at their place. Aiden, my oldest stepdaughter, is coming in from Nashville on Tuesday, so it'll be nice to see her. We don't have a big family like you, but it'll be fun, you know. So we're excited for that.
Yeah.
It'll be nice to have kind of a little bit of time off. I know that you've been working like a madman, and so title companies will be closed at least next week, Thursday, Friday, and all of that. So it'll be nice to just have a little bit of a break, kind of.
Yeah, and I think the weather, I mean, I know when we say, oh, it's hot, people from like Phoenix or something, they're like, oh, it's not that hot, but for El Paso, it's a lot colder, not colder, but cooler, like it's a little bit cloudy today, and actually I was meeting with somebody yesterday, and they're like, is it always like cloudy in El Paso? I was like, no, it's always sunny, but right now it's nice, right, because it's just not hot, it's not cold, it's just, for me, mid-70s, for me it's like the perfect weather, and that's kind of what it feels like right now.
Definitely. I was at actually the closing for one of our buyers yesterday, and the title officer that was closing us, she was joking about how she never gets to wear like any of her winter clothes. Like she has like winter jackets, and like she never gets to wear them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's El Paso. So yeah, nice time of year for sure, especially after a hot summer.
Yeah.
It's nice just to have everything cool and be able to like put on a long sleeve shirt for once and pants and be comfortable.
Right.
So, okay. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this. We don't need to get too into this because I was thinking about it this morning. It is gonna. So let me, I guess, explain the topic. So, a week or so ago, there was a lawsuit, and it was basically all about how real estate agents get paid. As you likely know, real estate agents get paid on commission. And so whenever you sell a home, typically the homeowner pays a commission. That commission is typically 5 to 6% of the sales price of the home. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people don't understand this, but that commission, let's go with 6%, that 6% commission, it doesn't all go to the listing agent, because when you are represented, when a real estate agent represents a buyer, actually the buyer doesn't pay their real estate agent. The buyer's real estate agent gets paid from the commission that's paid by the seller. So actually, the seller not only pays their real estate agent to sell the home, but they also pay the real estate agent who represented the buyer who purchases their home. Typically it's split down the middle. So 3% will go to the real estate agent who sells the home, 3% will go to the real estate agent who represented the buyer, okay? So, in the current configuration, if you're a home buyer and you purchase a home, you don't pay a penny to your real estate agent, right? Your real estate agent doesn't get paid until the home closes, and then like we said, the homeowner actually foots the bill for not only their real estate agent, but the real estate agent who represents the buyer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and like when I first got into real estate, I was surprised to learn that. Now, obviously, the seller is the one that pays for both agents. I just never expect that to be the case. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people still get surprised when I tell them, oh, really, I don't have to pay as a seller. But obviously, same with the seller, as a buyer, but same for the sellers. It's like, oh man, I have to pay for both agents. So I personally never thought it was fair. I know people are gonna not like that I say this, but I just, so things are changing. It's gonna be interesting to see how everything is just gonna evolve, because I think there's a lot of people, agents, non-agents, that they have an expectation of what we do for them, and I don't think a lot of people, in my opinion, realize what a good agent can do. Not only to save you money, but it's just a lot. Obviously, a bad agent can also kind of have issues with it. But yeah, it's just very interesting times, and I'm very curious to see how everything is just gonna end up settling into.
Absolutely, and we're going to get into that about, well, really, what does a buyer's agent do? What does a listing agent do? But I want to touch on what you said too, because you said it doesn't really sound fair. And quite honestly, it really isn't fair, because essentially what's happening is the National Association of Realtors, this is like the umbrella group of real estate agents, we're basically forced to belong to them in the state of Texas. So, I'll let this loud person pass. This is like the problem with sometimes going outside. But in the state of Texas, we have to belong to the National Association of Realtors, and this is a group that was sued, by the way. So, but anyway, yes, it isn't fair, because essentially what's happening is that homeowners who are selling their home are being forced to pay for the services of the buyer, right? And the buyer is essentially an opposing party. They're actively working against the homeowner, right? And yeah, the homeowner not only has to pay their real estate agent, but they have to pay the real estate agent of the buyer. So quite honestly, it isn't fair, and that's exactly what this lawsuit was about. And the plaintiffs who were suing the National Association of Realtors, they did win this lawsuit, okay? So it's going to change eventually. So that is what we're talking about here. So a little bit of background. My simple understanding is that basically in the 90s, more or less, so just to give people a historical background on this, in the 90s, essentially, there was a lot of turmoil when you would go to sell your house, and essentially the National Association of Realtors came up with this idea of, look, it's really in the buyer's best interest to have a real estate agent represent them, which is totally true, and we'll get into that in a second. But I don't know how this came about, but they somehow decided that the seller is the one who should pay for that real estate agent. I'm not sure how they came up with that. If they just thought that buyers wouldn't be willing to pay for a real estate agent, and they were like, well, let's just make the seller pay for it. I don't know how that all happened. We were not real estate agents that long ago. We just came into this system as it currently is. But that's kind of the background. And their rationale was that, look, it's in the buyer's best interest to have a real estate agent, or they're going to be taken advantage of, which is true. But again, I don't know how they came up with the idea and floated the idea that, hey, the seller's the one that's going to have to pay for it. Mm-hmm. Not exactly sure. But like I said, that is going to change. So how about, in a nutshell, let's talk about what real estate agents do for people. What would you say that, because in our business, I primarily am working with the sellers, you primarily are working with the buyers. Mm-hmm. So what would you say, what type of services would you say that a real estate agent provides to somebody who's looking to buy a home?
I think that a lot of people have the expectation that it's just filling up paperwork, but the process, it can go smooth or it can go pretty bad, and there can be a lot of steps in the process along the way that can, if you don't have an agent who has your best interest, you can lose a lot of money. You can get on a house that you didn't negotiate on the inspection and the repairs. Not only that, you need to have an agent that knows the market, right? Mm-hmm. Because I give you a quick example. A lot of people come and they see a house $350,000. They're like, oh, I like the house, and they're like, okay, $350,000. If they have an agent who doesn't care about them, and the house, the market is not there, they can get the house. Let's say right now, right? Oh, you can get this house for $20,000 under what they're actually asking. But if you don't have an agent who cares, or they're gonna be like, oh yeah, 350, go all the way, because they just care about the commission. Now, if you go directly with the seller, the agent that represents the seller, they're not gonna be like, oh, you know, you can get this house for 20,000. Like that, nobody's going to have your back, right? So that's why it's not only, in my opinion, good to have an agent, but an agent that actually has your best interest. Like I said, not only that, when you get into the negotiation part of things, in this business, you really get chewed up if you don't stand up for yourself, if you don't actually have somebody that represents you. And it's not like the clients can't stand up for themselves, but they don't understand how the process works. And unfortunately, if you don't have that information, which is very complex, it's a lot harder than people think. It's a lot of steps along the way. And like I said, you can really get chewed on by sellers, by their agents, if you don't know what you're doing. Because I read a lot of comments, and I understand, right? Because a lot of agents don't represent their clients to their best interest, so a lot of people don't have the best image of real estate agents. So they're like, why would I want to pay somebody that just care about their own interest and about their money, which is unfortunately true. A lot of people do. And also to that point, a lot of people think it's very easy. You just need to fill out paperwork. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm gonna become a real estate agent. And that's why it's like 80-something% of agents after like 1 year, they quit, because it's not easy. It's not just filling out paperwork. There's a lot that goes into it. So it's just a very complex process. And when I first learned, I was like, oh man, this is quite a bit. And I'm glad that we have all the experience, because like I said, sometimes it goes smooth and sometimes it can go really bad. And you can save a lot of money, like a lot of money, if you have an agent that, just like I said, just knows the area, knows about what to expect with repairs, appraisals, just all along the way. I think it's very important. People are like, oh, you say that because you're an agent. You just want, like, people that know me, I'm very honest, and some other agents might not like me because I'm very honest, but that's one thing. I have our clients' best interest always first. That's what, like, I think you should try to find.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a buyer's agent, a real estate agent who represents a buyer, of course, they're going to help the buyer find a home. If our buyer is in town, you show them homes in person.
Mm-hmm.
This can be, some people need to see 3-4 homes.
Mm-hmm.
Some people need to see 30 homes,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're coordinating all the showings.
Mm-hmm.
If our buyers aren't in town, we're making videos for clients. Again, this could be anywhere from 30 to who knows how many videos, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that time exchange for showing homes.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, a buyer's agent needs to know the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what we also do for our buyers is any home that they're going to make an offer on, we do a comparative market analysis via the MLS, so that we can make sure that the home is worth what they're trying to sell it for,
Right.
so we can understand what the home is likely to appraise for.
Right.
Your normal buyer is never going to be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'll just look at the Zestimate. Well, the Zestimate is nonsense, so good luck there.
Yeah.
And then after we help the buyer find a home, right, we have to help them make an offer. And it's not just, oh, I'm going to offer this much money. No, it's how much money you're going to offer for the home, earnest money, option periods, how much the home is maybe going to need to appraise for, home warranties, seller concessions for the buyer's closing costs, closing date, all these types of things. And there's so many variables in a contract. Keep in mind, this is a legal contract. Our 1 to 4 family, single family contract is 11 pages of legalese. So the idea that a buyer is just gonna figure it out or just write out the contract themselves, they're gonna make tons of mistakes. And without a real estate agent, for one, you're unlikely to get your offer accepted, because an unrepresented buyer, a buyer who doesn't have a real estate agent, an unrepresented buyer who starts submitting offers just on their own behalf, the listing agent who's working for the homeowner is going to, rightfully so, encourage the homeowner not to go with an unrepresented buyer, because the transaction is going to likely just be a train wreck, and it's probably going to fall apart anyway.
Yeah.
So this idea that buyers can just kind of figure it out or go take some real estate classes, I'm not sure that that's going to be ideal, you know. So a buyer's agent, they do a lot, right? So basically, what do we kind of think is going to happen? Now, keep in mind too, nothing's going to happen for a while.
Yeah.
More lawsuits are happening, appeals are happening. My guess is that it's going to be 1 to 2 years before we see any kind of significant change.
Yeah.
But let's say that 1-2 years from now, I do think it's going to change. I don't think it's just going to stay the same.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to change. So let's just talk about what we think is going to happen. For the sellers, it's likely means that they're going to pay less money. So it means that basically, if you're going to sell your home, the days of paying a 5 or 6% commission, those days are over. It's likely that you can offer maybe to pay something to a buyer's agent as like a bonus, maybe $1,000, couple $1,000, maybe a percentage. It sure won't be 3%, you know, maybe 0.5%, 1%, or it's flat out likely that the sellers won't pay a buyer's agent at all, and basically it'll be, you know, 2 to 3% to sell your home in the future.
Right.
So what do you think is maybe a probable outcome? I have some thoughts too on how buyer's agents might get paid.
I think that there's going to be a lot of pushback, obviously, from the sellers as if why would anyone want to pay somebody. I think what's going to happen is a lot of agents are going to quit, right?
Oh, for sure.
A lot of agents are going to quit because a lot of, you know, like I said, a lot of sellers are not going to want to do that, and a lot of agents are going to have to probably settle for less or try to show, obviously, buyers that the value that, you know, we can provide for them, because I do think that it's a lot of money, but I do think that representation is vital for anything, especially for this, right? So yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of quitting real estate agents, and a lot of less are going to have to people are going to have to take a lot less money in order to actually make a deal. Maybe they're going to try to negotiate with the seller, but like I just don't see the sellers being willing to do that. But I do think there's going to create a sort of a mess a little bit, because if you're not paying an agent, agents are not going to want to do the job for a little bit, or they're not going to want to represent you in the way that they should, because they're like, I'm only going to get paid certain amount, so I'm just going to kind of do the paperwork and not really care and not really put everything that an agent should. Because, you know, with us, it doesn't matter who it is. We put the same effort for every single person. So I think it's going to be very tricky. At first, it's going to be a lot of pushback. Nobody's going to want to do anything. It's going to be a lot of figuring out, but then eventually I think that there's going to be some agents that will, you know, get paid as a buyer's agent, because people are going to start realizing. Because again, a lot of people say it's very easy, we'll do it. And again, not because I'm an agent, but people are going to get burned. Like bad. And even not with agents, like my mom just sold her house, and the selling agent kind of like messed her up. So it happens now, but I think it's going to be more prevalent in the future. And people are going to be like, man, maybe I do need an agent, and have to find a good one that knows what they're talking about.
Yeah. But they'll likely have to be willing to pay for it.
Of course. No, yeah, of course, yeah.
So, to that point, I mean, think about this. I think it's similar to, let's say that you find yourself in court, right? Somebody sues you, or you sue somebody. And the other party has a real estate agent, okay? But you decide to represent yourself. You're going to get destroyed. I mean, you're going to get destroyed because the other party with the lawyer, they're going to destroy you, right? Because they understand all of the legalese, they understand the contracts, they've been in court hopefully a number of times before. You don't know anything about it, and you're going to be likely overly emotional, and you're going to get destroyed. And the same thing is going to happen if you're a buyer and you try to essentially, represent yourself. You know, the other listing agent, as soon as something goes awry, it's likely going to be your fault because you didn't meet a deadline, you didn't fill out the paperwork, whatever it is, and the other real estate agent is going to essentially likely make sure that you never get your earnest money back. Like that's the things that buyers are going to lose the most. Buyers are going to lose their earnest money. Earnest money is essentially like the deposit that you put down when your contract or when your offer is accepted. And then you have a time frame to do a certain number of things that are very important to the transaction. So many buyers, unrepresented buyers, are going to forfeit thousands of dollars because they're not gonna do the contracts right. They're not gonna meet these timelines, these deadlines, and they're gonna forfeit their earnest money. And people might say, well, no, I won't pay the earnest money. Well, then the contract's just going to terminate and you're going to have to start over again. You do have to pay that earnest money to the title company who's going to hold it on your behalf. Then you're going to, potentially mess something up and you're going to lose that money. So there's going to be a lot of videos about people losing earnest money who are going to be so upset. So yeah, it's going to be super, super interesting. But yeah, I think essentially, I think buyers are either going to have to pay out of pocket to a real estate agent. Maybe it's like an a la carte kind of thing. Like they pay, let's say, all right, you have to pay as you go kind of thing. So maybe the buyer pays a real estate agent $50, $100 to see one house or for a video of a house, and then that adds up. And then maybe they pay a buyer's agent $500 to write a contract. And then if it gets accepted, maybe they pay another $1,000 to, babysit the transaction. So that I think could be an option. One thing though that I do think might happen is that buyers will that mortgage lenders will essentially fold in the cost of the buyer's real estate agent into the mortgage, because a lot of buyers, remember, you have to have money for your down payment and you have to have money for your closing costs, and maybe a buyer doesn't have the extra money to pay a buyer's agent, and so they'll roll that money into the mortgage. Right now that currently can't happen, but I think that that's possibly a solution, but it's really hard to say.
Yeah, and like you said, it's gonna take a while, so I'm curious to see when it's getting close, how people are gonna start just freaking out on some man, like what's gonna happen, and then I think we're just gonna have to, see. As I don't think people are gonna plan as much. I think people are gonna expect that this is not gonna happen. We'll wait it out. It's gonna, it's not gonna go through, even though it kind of already did. But yeah, it's just interesting because it's been like this for forever, not forever, but pretty much, and for a long time. So it's just interesting.
Yeah,
interesting
super
to see
interesting.
How it's gonna change.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. So yeah, I don't have too many other thoughts about it. Like I said, I don't think anything's going to change too much right now. I think it's possible that some sellers who know about it, they're going to start lowering the commission that they pay to sell their home. So, right now, it's typical, 6%, and then 3% goes to the buyer's agent, 2.5%. Sometimes we see 2%, but typically it's 2.5% to 3%. I think we're going to start to see sellers be like, hey, I saw this lawsuit go through. Let's only offer the buyer's agent 1% or 2%. That's going to start happening. But then, and I will tell our sellers this, fine, it's their decision. But what's going to happen if you're a buyer's agent and you see a listing and it's offering 1%, what are most buyer's agents going to do?
Yeah, I've heard that some people, if it's not 2.5 or more, they won't even show it.
Yeah.
For me, that's
they won't even show their client the house.
Ridiculous,
right?
Yeah.
They'll either say to the client just full out, no, I'm not going to show you this house, but they likely won't do that because they know that the buyer would fire them, as they should. What they'll probably do is make up some excuse and say, oh, I tried to request it, but they didn't show it, or they'll make up something, and so that's going to start to happen because it already kind of happens now. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, and that reminds me, I watched a video, I was about a year ago, I think some lady in California or in Oregon, that they were obviously talking about agents, and the lady was saying how she put her house on the market and she was only offering like 1% to the buyer's agent, and the whole the whole news crew was there because they're saying, look, and they interview other agents like undercover, and basically nobody wanted to show the house because they're all bad agents. I get it, it's a little bit of money, but like, listen, you're gonna tell your clients outright if you're that type of agent, if you don't want to work for that money, but don't lie to them. So everybody was lying, and the owner of the house was like, I think they don't want to show it because I'm only giving them a certain percentage. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty messy, and like I said, it's just interesting to see what's gonna happen. But you know, a lot of agents are gonna have to quit.
Yeah, it's and a lot of agents already are quitting because the market is not good right now, and so you know, a lot of agents simply can't make enough money to support their families. So there's already a lot of people dropping out. So yeah, that's likely going to be the case. I always say this, and I don't know if it's going to be true. I'm pretty sure it is, but my big picture thinking on this, you know, this I always talk about this. Big picture, I think in 5 to 10 years, real estate agents are kind of a thing of the past, and essentially technology has replaced us. Whether it's Zillow or, you know, there's going to be I think real estate agents' time is limited. Essentially, there's already certain programs where like, and people will be like, oh well, how are people going to see the houses? There's already systems in place and technologies in place in other parts of the country where you don't even need a real estate agent to go see a home. The home has some kind of special lockbox. The unrepresented buyer, they just make an appointment, they get a code, the seller confirms it, and they go look at the house themselves.
Right.
You know, so.
But what about the other stuff?
The listing agents?
No, negotiating, repairs, and
I think there'll be some type of, right now, there's something called intermediary, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is what an intermediary is, because right now, let's say that I have a listing and I'm trying to sell a house, and an unrepresented buyer, a buyer without a real estate agent, comes to me directly and says, hey, I want to buy this house. Mm-hmm. I can't represent both the seller and the buyer. That's not legal, right? How could I work on the best interest of two opposing parties, right? It's impossible. But what I can do is, in our situation, since Alex and I are on a team, I could represent the buyer, and then Alex could represent, I could represent the seller, the homeowner, and then Alex could represent that buyer. That's called an intermediary because we both work for the same broker, but I would then be responsible for the fiduciary duties to the seller. Alex would be responsible for the fiduciary duties to the buyer, and that's called intermediary. That is legal. So I think that in the future, that it'll be worked out that way. Like, you know, let's just take Zillow. Zillow will be able to essentially separate itself into like two distinct representative parties, where one represents the best interest of the buyer, one represents the best interest of the seller, and that's how they negotiate essentially. So.
And I feel like, I mean, Zillow is not great, but I don't.
Yeah, I'm not saying it'll be Zillow.
Yeah,
but
well, living
technology.
everything. Yeah, no, I think it will definitely change like that. But I feel like there maybe in those times there might still be people who will prefer it, but definitely it's gonna be very few of them. I think. Like the technology is just crazy, and everything with the AI, how fast it's going. Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting. Like you said, 5, 10 years, 15, what's gonna happen? But yeah, interesting.
Totally interesting. And in the meantime, everything's probably likely going to stay the same. Like I said, I don't know exactly, but my guess is 1 to 2 years, something's going to happen, and we'll see, I guess, when that time comes. But it's an interesting topic, at least if you're a real estate agent. It's an interesting topic, and so, yeah, that's really it.
Yeah, and we apologize for not having the comments on. I don't know what the deal is that we couldn't have the comments on, but we'll figure it out. We're gonna have a whole setup and everything probably next time. But yeah, we really appreciate everybody, obviously, for the support in the channel. If you have any questions and concerns, if you want us to talk about a specific topic, just let us know on the comments after the video, because I think live comments are not working. So
yeah, that was not on purpose. Actually, we love the comments because then it gives us stuff to talk about and we can answer questions. So yeah, we'll definitely fix that. And yeah, we're kind of in limbo right now. Usually we do the videos here in a room in my house, but we've outgrown that space. So after Thanksgiving, we're gonna set up a new space, a new studio, and we'll dial this in a little bit better and definitely enable comments because that's
the whole
why
point.
we do. That's supposed to be the whole point of the live episode. So yeah, our apologies for that. That's on us. Yikes.
That's fine. Like I said, we really appreciate everybody. Hopefully everybody stays safe, has a lot of fun. If you have family over and on Thanksgiving, it's a pretty big deal for everybody. So yeah, I hope everybody's enjoying their time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, holiday wishes and best to everybody on Thanksgiving. If you're traveling or you have family traveling, safe travels to everybody there. And like I said, I guess we'll sign off with that.
Yeah. Like I said, thank you again, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, everybody.